Who's here? Is there anybody here? Hi Tubes. Hi Tube Stormer, how you doing? Right, well, it's great you're on here. I'll just turn my fire off here. Because I'll just sort my hair, it's 2 seconds. That will have to do. Right. So got a session planned for today. So we are talking about very good how to practice is what we're going to be doing today. How to practice, and I've planned, in theory, although I haven't been fully through it, I have planned a bit of a presentation. So it's like YouTubers say, it's not what you're expecting. At least I don't think it is. I don't think it's what everybody's expecting, but it'll be good. I'm going to approach how to practice from a slightly different angle. Than you would normally get, really, in a way. Hi, Smart Alec. It is going great. So I was just saying. So we're doing how to practice today. So how to practice is not to practice at all. No, that's not what we're doing. You're open. That's good. Smart Alec will be open. So I'm just going to hang on a little bit, see who else comes on here. Because if they come on and I start and they're like halfway through or a few minutes into it, they'll be like, oh no, I've missed it. So I've just, I've probably organised things a little bit. And I've got a theme about practice. And we're going to cover... Well, I mean, what we're going to do is I'm going to approach it from the mindset is what I'm going to do, rather than just dictate to everybody and say, learn to pick first, and this is how you practice a pick and exit. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do give people exercises and stuff like that. I might show you how I do things, but it's a surprise what I'm going to do today. But yes, it's going really good. It was a busy day today yesterday. However, I didn't do as much playing as I would have liked. I'm used to playing tons, but I must have only got... Well, there was the morning, so whatever I played there, best part of an hour. And then there was on the live, and I think there was only another half an hour after that, so just 2 hours. Yeah, it is intriguing, Alec. But I've done it in a way that it'll be useful for this live for people coming back as well. That's the other thing. People will be able to half understand what's going on. So interesting. But what I am interested, Tube Stormer, Smart Alec, and anybody else who's out there, can you let me know in the chat what it is you're practicing now, and what you're trying to achieve? Hello, Stelly. So I'd like to know what you're practicing now, maybe, and what you're trying to achieve. It doesn't have to be guitar as well, this. It can actually be, technically, it can be anything. Although it is meant to be music. And I am referencing music, but I know for a fact, with what we're going through, you could apply to anything that you're doing in life, which is either a wonderful thing because, as you know, music is a great teacher about everything that we do, really. I mean, but yeah, just have a think. So I'd be interested in what you're trying to practice on guitar, or what your objectives, aims are. Stelly, I don't know if you can say in the chat what you're sort of interested in trying to achieve. And I'll start in a couple of minutes, because I'm still just enjoying my coffee. Shredding, legato, string skipping. Oh, okay, so I'll go for the legato and string skipping. Brilliant. Anybody else? I'll just flash these up on here. I haven't seen them. Right, why is that all crazy? So we go tube stormer, shredding, string skipping, legato, and then we've got, I'm working on getting out of the same old stuff. I'm learning some funky James Brown stuff. I'm working on getting out of the same old stuff. Interesting. I'd like to know more about that. I'd like something a bit more specific. Smart Alec. I wonder what the same old stuff is. Because I bet there's something we could do with the same old stuff. Proper right and left hand done with inefficiency, tension, unnecessary struggle, yeah. To play hard, you can just play light. Honestly, it's all doable. Dead Punk streams. Hi Dead Punk, how are you doing? Me and my friend are trying to make an electric guitar sound like a violin. That sounds like a great job to do. So I suppose one thing to do, well, you can use EBOs and things like that, can't you, on electric guitars? But I suppose if you're doing it technology, I thought about this because I was listening to some Alan Holdsworth stuff, and there was something else I was listening to. Oh no, it was Tim Miller, and Tim Miller was playing a solo, and I couldn't hear. There was no attack at the front end of his guitar. He was compressing it. It was like a gainy sort of sound, and it sounded like it was smoothed out with compression, and that the front end attack was completely gone. There was you couldn't hear any pick attack. It was just dead smooth, and it wasn't his fingers. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like as if there was some sort of envelope modulation there on every note, smoothing it out. So there's something there, and I've thought about this, but I haven't found anything that's completely zero latency that would smooth out that front end attack without putting a load of latency on. The only one thing I can think of off the top of my head, which I haven't tried out, would be Cable Guy's, what's it? Cable Guy's something box. And it basically has the envelope. It has like these. It's a plug-in. You open it up in your door, and it has these different shaper box. That's what it's called. Cable Guy's shaper box. Might be worth getting a demo and trying this. I'm going to try this actually when I think about it. And it's got these little modules that you can open up inside a plug-in window, and it's got a volume one, and that volume one does track audio. So when you play a note, it'll shave it. It's got to look ahead. But the problem with that is it's 1.5 milliseconds on your project. Now I like to live stream, play live, and I just I've got like a zero tolerance policy almost on anything that's like high latency like that. I mean, guitar plugins, you got to have latency, and the polychrome stuff, which I use, is amazing. Has the lowest latency I've ever seen, ever. And I run tons of instances live and streaming, and it's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't do it with any other plugin. All right, okay, there's basically the same 5 guitar things to play over and over. Right, okay. It's an interesting one, because what inspired me to really move things in my playing smart Alec is, and I talked about this before, when I was doing coach training myself, and it was this program that I was being coached and coaching on called Mastery. And one of the exercises which had a profound effect on me basically was write down all the things about your playing or studio techniques or melodic things that you do that just you keep doing that irritate you, those kind of repetitious things that you made, but you keep doing and you think, oh, every time you do it. So I had tons of that. What is interesting, and this will apply to your 5 things there, Smart Alec, is when you played those 5 things, and the fact that you played them over and over and over again, is they came from a place where you thought they were all right. So there's something good in there. Now, I know you're bored with them, but music can be infinite. So what I'd be interested in doing as an exercise for you is just sitting down with a bit of paper and doing a bit of a free write on it, these 5 things, where they came from, what are they, why was it you liked them, why don't you like them now? And then once you kind of get that out of the way, have a look at using them almost like a scale to improvise on, and try different sequences and different ways of playing them. So you could tap them, you could pick them, you could hybrid pick them, you could wide interval them. You could use them and pick out is there arpeggio lines contained in there? Is it a pentatonic thing? Are there different pentatonic sequences you can do? What happens if you slow it down, speed it up? So there's lots of things you can do with these different 5 things, okay, to actually make them into something else. And I mean, what actually happened with me is I realised to do what I wanted to do with the things that I was sick of doing, I had to go off. It was one of the things that pushed me over the edge of learning different techniques like the hybrid picking and economy picking. It was instrumental in that, actually. So it's worth, rather than getting all frustrated about playing the 5, because it's something we all do that, is just have a look, because obviously there was something you liked before and something that works. So rather than just dreading the whole thing, what can you pull out of that to use as a foundation to start something new, so you're not, totally starting blank. Right. I'm currently writing a rap song. Most of my friends said, most of my friends said the verses hit hard and it sounds like something from New York City rap sound. So I'm going to ask you if you could give me feedback on this first verse. People liked it for the rest. I mean, you could okay, so Dead Punk Streams. Alright, so I don't do feedback the way that you would expect feedback, because I don't believe in me giving my opinion to you and you taking my opinion like it actually means something. What we have to do as independent artists who are, going to embrace uncertainty, go out in the world and do our own thing and be sovereign, creative individuals, us responding and asking for feedback isn't really part of that. Successful people who I've coached, okay, just don't do that. They just think, I'm doing this and I don't need feedback on it. I'm going to do it and I'm going to put it out, and that's the feedback. The feedback is the response from the world. And the interesting thing about wanting feedback is a lot of times there's a certain element with a lot of people, not saying this is you, is there's a fear aspect. There's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of putting this out there and wanting some sort of certainty that everybody's going to like it. And you just can't have that. What you got to do is you've just got to do the thing. If it sounds good to you, then it's good enough to release. And actually, to be fair, in my career of releasing tons of music, I very rarely would I really like anything. I would just put it out because I knew that it was good enough and somebody else in the world would enjoy it. So feedback doesn't bother me. However, us learning to develop our own self-feedback, which is something I do in my coaching groups because I work as a music coach, and you can book me on a one-to-one session for something like this. I do have a system called paths that I use, which is where you evaluate yourself on the purpose, in other words, for you, your lyrical content, and the arc, the thing, the hooks, and the space. We kind of evaluate ourselves how well all of these things are functioning in order of supporting the purpose. So the purpose is the story that you're trying to tell in your rap, and all of music around that should be serving the purpose. And if they're serving the purpose, then it's good, okay? And that's what we want. We want everything in service of the idea and the story that you're telling. But I do. There is a new coaching group starting in January, and you're welcome to start on that. If you want to talk to me further, just send an email and get you on there, and you certainly wouldn't need any feedback ever again. You'd give yourself feedback, and you would go off and release music, and everything would be brilliant. Oh, the other thing is, anybody who's on here, if you can just subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'm going to start in a minute on this how to practice. So some great sort of things people are saying here. Yeah, I've been working on 3 notes per string in pentatonic from strings 6 to 1, using economy picking and trying to build speed. Brilliant. And there's Sean. Good morning. I hung on waiting, and I think now Sean's on. We're going to start. So Sean, if you shut the doors to the lecture theatre so we don't get a draft in here and freeze to death, we'll start. Now, I don't know how good this is going to be, because it's the first sort of time that I've done this. And I threw this together, literally. But I thought this would give us some direction. And that is... I'll just move me over there. There we go. Here we are. How to practice. Now, I'll just move my chat out of the way, and I'll try and keep an eye on that. Right, how does this look? So, welcome everybody to module 21657 of your practical practicing an instrument with the inner game of music. No, it's well, basically what I thought I'd do is I would just chuck some slides together, so we've got something to look at and something you could go back on the videos, right? Just to look at. So it looks really dry. I thought it was quite funny just having something that was like a work presentation. But it is a serious thing, so sorry if this is feeling like work for everybody. I was just not prepared to put nice animations and things like that on a presentation. In fact, an interesting thing is Pythagoras, who came up with the concept of the acousma, which was something that inspired me as a sound artist, another story which I'll tell at some point. What he used to do he would lecture his students from behind a curtain, and the reason he did that is because he thought that the visual communication and non-verbal communication would distract his students from the actual oral word that he was saying, and he wanted them to focus in solely on what he was saying and not be distracted by his basically non-verbal communication. Very interesting, isn't it? So I could black myself out, but I'm going to allow me to be here as well. And I'll be flicking on and off the slides. So anyway, practicing an instrument with the inner game of music. Now, the inner game of music, as you guys know, is a very inspiring book for me, and it really, 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 and still does, massively helps me if I'm stuck and I need to overcome things. Then it is an absolute guiding light to me. And I can't really say how great it is, not just for playing an instrument. When I first started using the inner game of music, it was actually for music production. It was about being more productive and thinking about how I was approaching music and music making on your computer, more with the idea of it being like an instrument, and this has really sort of helped me work that out. So Tube Stormer in a game sounds like a pickup artistry. It is. But for music. So what we're going to do is we're blending mindfulness, focused on awareness, and intuitive performance techniques with traditional practice methods. So there you go. You're going to get your practice methods. Oh, good. There's H.C. Nielsen. Welcome. Morning. And we just started. You're on the very first slide of how to practice. So that's good. So providing I can get this to work. Okay, next one is understanding two selves. So we have a self one, critical judgment voice. We have self two, the intuitive creative musician. We have a key tip here, which is silencing self one's negative commentary and let self two perform naturally. Allow me to explain this because this is extremely important. Okay, and if I did nothing else today, then dialing this in would be a key thing, right? So, self one, the critical self. I mean, we do need self one, the critic, the editor. It's something that sort of can help us later on. It's certainly something that we have this conscious layer of thinking. Kind of helps us through the day, it helps me. I talk to my missus and my children and my employees, my boss in a certain particular way, and it's this editor that sort of helps that. And I remember when I was doing coach training years ago, I mean this would be 2017, one of the things we're doing is we're doing a search for flow. So we're looking at how to build flow into your practice, into your studio sessions. And one of the things we're asked is, where do, when you're thinking, where do those thoughts actually come from? Can you point to them? And, usually they're in your head. Sometimes they're down here. So you could point to these thoughts. But the idea was that, if you can point to those thoughts, is that you? So that conscious layer of thinking, those thoughts that we have about what we're doing, usually reviewing our process, usually a negative thing. For example, when you first go on stage playing your first song in your band, you kind of have that thing where you're aware of like, what's the audience think of me? What am I doing? Oh, my solo's coming up. I need to play this solo. I need to be ready. And then, I need to play the pentatonic scale. There's all this kind of feedback. Play that. Your head will say, play that lick that you've been practicing for ages, and then you'll try and do it, and it'll all go terribly wrong. Well, this is all that self-one thinking. But if we're aware of this voice that we have, then that isn't us, is it? Who we are is the person listening to that voice. Now, although this sounds obvious, when I eventually got my head around it, it absolutely blew my mind. And I became so addicted to music because I wanted to experience myself, because myself is somebody who lives in this no timeline. Okay? Self one lives in a timeline, lives in the past, and it predicts the future. Very good when we were in the Serengeti plains throwing spears and hunting animals. If your friend was killed by a bear and eaten in a cave, all right, then your brain would go, don't go in that cave. Somebody was killed in there. So, it's always jumping from past to the future and predicting possible outcomes, because what it's trying to do is protect us. Now, we don't need protecting when we're doing like solos or making music, but what we need to do is we need to be connected to ourself too, which is where all the limitless possibilities are. So I hope we're following this. Yes, so all the limitless possibilities are there in self too, which is where we need to be. And this is really the mindful side. And this is the key thing. So when you're playing in front of people or just the missus or the kids or something like that, this is a great thing to practice, because it really gets you to practice that calming down of the self one and getting into self two and experiencing those two things, and the fear, and learning to control that. And it is, as I say, a skill. So self two, okay, if you think about it, there's no real timeline. And that's where I want to be. So that's just immediate response. And when we're in that self too, that's when we're in flow. And when we're in flow, this is where extreme sports athletes are when they're jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. They're not thinking about possible futures or what's happened in the past to somebody when they jump out of an airplane. You know, that Red Bull jump, completely in flow and focused in exactly on what he is doing at that time. That's where we need to be. So that's self 1, self 2. So I think like one thing you can do that really worked well for me, and I still do when I remember, is to meditate. So I used to always do 5 minutes meditation, just simply breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth, and that was it, and focus on the rise and fall of my chest for 5 minutes. And what I noticed is when I was doing studio sessions, there were a lot more. It was easier to get into flow. It was easier to get in that self 2. I wasn't really aware of any self 1, or at least not as much. The other thing to get into self 2 that I would say, so there's a meditation, which is much more practical, is to use a timer for everything you do. So I've got this new timer actually, which I don't like. So if you're doing like an exercise, all right, and you're practicing, put a minute on. One of the apps I really like, and you can get it for free, is a metronome called Metro Timer. So I hope everybody's got this. This is Metro Timer. So the cool thing about Metro Timer is you can push one of these buttons at the bottom and it times 1 minute whilst you do your multiple repetitions of something. So I really like that, and that really gets me into flow in my practice, you know, if I'm really kind of trying to solve things. So Metro Timer's really, really good. I highly recommend that. So yes, is everybody following this, by the way? Now, if you've got any questions, hi Jeff, just say, anybody who's new on here, do subscribe. All right, next one. So set clear, attainable goals. Choose 1 or 2 specific goals for each session. Dynamics articulation. Avoid overloading yourself with unrealistic expectations. So an example is focus clearly on articulating a passage at a slower tempo. All right, so this is the thing I see. So my daughter, who when she would practice violin, she would play through a piece, make a mistake, right, and then go completely back to the beginning and then play from the beginning all the stuff she could do and then make the same mistake, which is a huge waste of time. What you're meant to do is just go to the problem area and actually assess almost on an X, Y, Z level where the problem is happening, okay? And then being able to articulate what the problem is. And this is the same when we're writing music as well. If you're writing music and there's a problem within your composition, you can locate that problem. And in both cases, what really, really helps is to be able to describe describe what is happening around the problem and then be able to explain it. And when you do that, usually the solution will pop out, or you'll have some concrete information of where you can take that to a teacher, or heaven forbid, do a YouTube search and be able to have somebody show you the exact way to overcome that problem, or even better, actually, you'll just be able to work it out yourself. All right. So being able to articulate in terms of describing and explaining. And I think this will be later on in the slides, but the interesting thing about the inner game of music is what it suggests you to do is when you approach a problem, play it hard, play it quiet, play it as fast as you possibly can, play it as slow as you possibly can, play it at medium tempo, and all the time just observe what is happening, okay? In terms of your playing and the ergonomics, okay? So you're just looking at how you're playing and you're observing. A lot of times, your brain on the lower level will kind of fix the problem when we're doing that. And it's a great way to get away from self-one, telling you, you're getting it wrong, you're not doing that, you need to do this. We don't want that kind of back chat, right, in our heads whilst we're practicing. Like, this is the difficult bit. Focus. We want to be totally in flow. all of the time. So, but other than that, if it's a real analytical problem that we're problem solving, describing and explaining is really important. In the coaching groups, I have a whole exercise I take people around. It's a whole session of actually how to do this. It's called Codex, and Codex allows you to solve any musical problem. It's quite amazing how you can fix any problem, and it's just this practice of describing and explaining something. Good. I hope everybody's following. All right, good. We are. Let's continue. Adopting a playful and curious mindset. Treat practice as exploration rather than a chore. Experiment with dynamics, phrasing, and techniques. An exercise is to play a phrase in different styles, legato and staccato. So, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. The curious mindset for me is the way that I play things now, and curiosity is that always, instead of using a metronome, right? I mean, I'll use a metronome in extreme circumstances where I haven't got access to play over a backing track. So I'll put something on, or maybe very early on in the learning phase, I might do that as a little bit of a guide. But primarily, when we're learning all these things that we're doing, right, and we're practicing and, what we're trying to do is we're trying ultimately, okay, and especially when we think of zones of experience and our connection with the world, is we're trying to make music. I see it time and time again with people producing music, people playing instruments, guitarists, me included, this has happened to me many times, is that we become so absorbed in acquiring the skills, we forget why we're doing it. And then it just becomes a barrier of, I can't do what I'm wanting to do because I haven't learned the skills. Bottom line is, music is a metaphor for us to express our thoughts and emotions, not for us to display technique all the time. It's for us to be able to communicate some sort of story through emotion to other people. And, people have heard me going on about AI. This is the thing that makes us human, all right? And it's the most important thing, isn't it? To be able to express yourself in front of other human beings, or just even to be able to just express yourself to yourself. Music is a hugely beneficial thing for mental health. I mean, I have a whole job, which I do around this, helping people with autism, learning difficulties, mental health, in a hospital setting, in wards as well. And I know that it's a hugely important, very valuable thing for people to express those emotions, okay? It's a thing that allows us to explore our own emotions and who we are without disclosing anything to anybody else. We can have the most personal things going on with our music. So that's the most important thing. And everything else around that, our skill set, our knowledge, is in service of that one thing. So that's really important. I'm looking directly in the camera because I'm serious. Excellent. But obviously all the practical things with that is you are practicing dynamics and you're practicing phrasing. Okay. And because you've got the backing track on there, we're practicing making music. So one of the things I like to do, which is a bit of a hybrid from like just practicing and, and doing something, a mechanical exercise, it's not expressing emotion. But what we can do when we're learning something, or a scale, or say something that's really unfamiliar. So for me at the minute, chromatic enclosures. I've been really trying to program my head to hear melodically how chromatic enclosures work at different degrees of a scale. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just play a chromatic enclosure on a particular degree of a scale over a backing track, so I can hear all the different permutations of it over chords, and that kind of is programming my ear into the actual sound. You could just simply play a major scale over a backing track or a mode, right? And you can program your brain to hear how those intervals work Okay, what are good notes, what's working, what's not working so well. You don't necessarily have to understand following the chords. I mean, that's a great thing. But actually using your ear is the best method. Okay, and then when we get into an analytical phase, we can kind of look more technically how those things work. But out of the gate, just using a scale, a sound, something unfamiliar, you're practicing, using a backing track is just a great way to not only practice the physicality, the technical side of it physically, but also programming your head with those notes. Okay? Very important. Now, I just need to check the chat. So, Jeff, I said hello to Jeff. Where's my mouse thing? So, probably early congratulations, but I'll do an early congratulations because next time I'll certainly pass the threshold. Yes, I mean, it'd be great to get past the 1,000 mark. And again, please subscribe. Right. Is everybody happy with this presentation at the minute? Stay present. The mindfulness to focus on the now. Take a deep breath before starting to center your attention. Feel physical sensations in your hands, arms, or breathe as you play. So, yeah, especially, I do like the physical sensations in your hands, arms, and breathe as you play is super important. Obviously, I've mentioned the meditation side, but if we don't have 5 minutes, or we're going into a stressful situation, okay, there's some things that I really, really like to do. And one of them, or a few of them, is this. Right, where's my guitar? Okay. And it's so simple. All I'm doing is I'll just pick one note on a string. So I'm going to pick E on the 4th for now. And to kind of get into that zone, okay, to get into that feel, here's a little experiment for you. So the first one is a lot of times we're playing too hard, right? So just picking and then pushing the note and then trying to remember that feeling of how light we're playing, not how hard, how light. Now, the other real sort of sensory side of this is doing something where we're using all of our fingers. So we'll do a chromatic thing here, right? And one thing I like to do is to feel the vibrations in my fingers, okay? So I'm just really totally focused on this hand. And I'm just observing the vibrations in my fingers and how far they come up my fingertips. Now what this does is it really helps to focus you 100% on the guitar, but completely and utterly quietens down self one. Remember the critical self. So that's what this does. So remembering how light we can be. I'm really enjoying just those vibrations. The other thing I like to do is then listen to the articulation of the plectrum. So now what I'm doing is I'm feeling the tension of the string on the plectrum. So this is all physical feelings in our hands. Another thing I'll do is, for listening, I'll listen to the space in between notes. So what I'm doing is I'm listening to the spectromorphology of the sound. That's a good word. So the attack, the decay of frequencies and volume, and we can do this with something that we're trying to play, you know. And obviously having fun with something, you know, so I could take something like that, which is a bit hit and miss when I play it, and just experiment with it, playing it in different ways. I don't have to play it up and down a regular rhythm. Just enjoy the notes. Okay. And then, of course, another little tip is then feel free to, when you're practicing something, I mean, this is a beauty thing if you do a backing track, end your exercise on a nice melodic phrase. See where else you can go with this. So that's nice, isn't it? So I've got all these different permutations of an idea coming from pretty much an arpeggio that's going up and down. And the main thing with that is I'm doing something musical and fun and serving my curiosity and enjoying the physical feeling. All my senses are exploding. This is why I love guitar. But no, so I can see the chat now properly. HC Nielsen, thank you for the congratulations. But I hope I get there. I've only got Friday. It's the end of the working week. My deadline. The interesting thing is, sort of when I do this more coachy stuff, people don't necessarily like it as much. But it's a very sort of niche thing. Okay. So do put in the chat if you're following this and you're enjoying the lecture, and it is a lecture. Sounded Ricky Gervais, didn't it? And this is a lecture. So non-judgmental awareness. Replace harsh criticism with objective observation. Acknowledge mistakes without self-judgment. An example, instead of I always mess that up, think, the note didn't speak clearly, what can I adjust? Thank you, Chris Holland. He's enjoying the lecture. Brilliant. Thank you, Sean. And yeah, Tube Stormer is still here. Now, if you need to go to the toilet or anything like that, you don't have to, you know, we're all adults. You can leave the room. Just make sure you shut the door behind you. And then when you come back, sit quietly with the others. Right, okay. If this doesn't reach the masses and is appealing, I'll do one that's less like a grown-up lecture, and I'll do one that's more like sort of my daughter and her friends' carpet time. Come on, everybody, get round. I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time. No. So, yes, replacing harsh criticism with objective... replace the harsh criticism with objective observation. Can I just say, beating yourself up for anything never works, apart from makes you hate the thing that you're doing. and wonder why you're doing it. Okay, we don't need to do that. I don't know what all that is about. It's never worked with me, and I don't know who it works with. But for some reason, we're programmed like this. I would blame our schooling, the education system that's 250 years out of date, that was basically training and conditioning us to work in a workhouse in the Industrial Revolution. And the theory on that was like basically working hard is good, and if you don't work hard, you're a bad person, right? Well, that's absolute nonsense. Right? And don't buy into it yourself. So you've just really got to let things go, and rather than having, you see, that harsh criticism and feeling bad, at the end of the day, it's a feeling, right? And we know feelings aren't the real data that we're working for. It's an early warning system. Well, maybe for me, and it's like, oh, you need to look at this, right? If it happens. But not something, it's not a stick for me to beat myself up with. What we need to do is objective observation. So this is where we take the scientific mode and we go, okay, there's something continuously going wrong here and it needs to be looked at. This is interesting. Because if I overcome this is going to lead on to like lots of good things. There's something to be excited about that. When we encounter a problem, we don't beat ourselves up. We think that is interesting. Okay? Doesn't matter if it's a simple problem or a problem that everybody's had and you shouldn't be having it or whatever. Okay, it's a problem. And the fact of the matter is, it's something that we need to overcome and solve. Because when we do that, we create new knowledge for ourselves. We're all different. We all have different ways of learning. Okay? It's not school, right, where you have to learn in one way. Like in Victorian times, like if you were left-handed, they made you write with your right hand. It's not that, right? We appreciate our different, the differentiation amongst us, the different dynamics of learning that we have, and we embrace that, and we come up with our own solutions to come up with the problems, and that in itself is something to learn, because if you do that, then we're really moving towards this independent learner mindset, as well as being, a producer who is proactive and not reactive. Again, being that creative, sovereign individual that I want everybody to be in the whole entire world that makes music, okay? And then half of the YouTube videos wouldn't be there anymore. We wouldn't have to listen to like people telling you to solve problems you haven't had and driving everybody into fear and panic about not doing something that they should have done, right? Which doesn't matter. So, harsh criticism, it's going to be there. Just push it to one side and actually focus in on the sound that's coming from your instrument, coming out of your speakers, okay? Observe what we said before, the technique. How does it feel? So we can triangulate our senses, can't we? So how does it look? How does it feel? How does it sound? Okay? I mean, a great problem solver is Troy Grady with his with all the sort of theories and practical experiments that he's done with sanded picking. He really is absolutely amazing. The guy should have a doctorate. He should be, a PhD guy, but his absolute flawless research into that is totally like what and how you want to be thinking. There's no harsh criticism there. He's just, right, this doesn't work. There must be a reason for it. And he explores the idea of why something's not working like a scientist, like an engineer. And then he's come up with this whole thing about picking angles, which has totally massively helped my problem, sanded picking. When we make mistakes, this is another thing, is not to beat ourselves up. Again, this is something that I have had to practice extensively, and the best way I practice it is when I'm sitting next to Thomas on a live, is just being able to completely mess up. Either sometimes we just laugh about it, don't we? Because we're all human, and we're celebrating that human side of us. We're all messing up. It's fine. It's a wonderful mess up. Okay, it might be something I have to work on later, but hey, let it all hang out. But don't beat yourself up. Part of the skill is you can acknowledge that there's a mistake, then something that may need your focus. But also part of the practice is just not getting on board with the negative thoughts and continue to focus on the music and play. And that is a skill to practice. Not getting distracted with those thoughts, because immediately when you make a mistake with music, self one jumps into the thing. Right, whoa, stop what you're doing. Because it's trying to protect you. It's like, stop what you're doing, do this, do that, making loads of ridiculous suggestions. But the problem is if we are listening to those thoughts, we're not listening to the music. And if we're not listening to the music, we're not going to play very well. So yeah, instead of I always mess that up, okay, and getting on board with that feeling, just focusing back in the music. If we're in a performance situation, if we're not, the note didn't speak clearly, what can I adjust? So again, we are looking at exactly where the problem is and locating it, and then trying to come up with some sort of exercise by describing and explaining. And we can make little micro practices out of that, which is something I absolutely love doing. So Tube Stormer, lately I'm working on imagining how I want to feel when playing well. Lots of positive thoughts and visualization. Yep, all of that can really, really help. Develop trust in your body. So, again, this is self too. Let go of overthinking technical details. Practice slow, deliberate repetitions to build the muscle memory. Exercise. Close your eyes while playing a familiar passage and trust your muscle memory. So this is something I often do, and also shut my eyes so I can hear what I'm doing in more detail. But yes, letting go of that thinking technical detail, because that all comes from self one, doesn't it? And we need to be into that self two. Practicing. So there's two methods of. I was listening to an interview with Andy Wood, who's an absolutely amazing player, and he said something very interesting. So there are two modes to practicing, and I think this is more to do with, for me, practicing speed. All right. So there's that practicing slow, deliberate repetitions to build muscle memory. But once we have that, we do need to practice up to speed, at a really fast speed, okay? Because what you're doing is, the next phase of this is to actually polish those fast licks. And Andy had this great way of saying it. He says, it's like when you're buffering something with a wheel, right? You can't buffer something if the wheel is rotating slowly. It has to be up to speed to be able to polish the rough edges of. So, and I thought that was a great analogy, and that's what it's like. So a lot of the times when I'm playing fast, I'm actually practicing and I'm making just micro adjustments if I'm doing economy picking, and just how I'm attacking those notes and getting a feel for it and dealing with the overall sound and the physical feeling of what it's like and trying to get that into memory. So developing trust in your body, absolutely. These are all important things, and this is why today I've decided to stick these things up on a slide, talk you through them, because what you can do is you can just then flick through, not listen to me, and just go to the slide and just imagine how you can apply these things to your situation. That's the most important thing. I can tell you how I've done it. I give you theory on it, but the only way really to sort of get to grips with this is to experience it yourself. Okay? Visualize success. Imagine yourself playing a passage perfectly. Hear the music clearly in your mind before playing. Visualize challenging sections before attempting them. So this is straight out of the book of The Inner Game of Music when you're playing pieces, Imagine you're doing it really well. Really, really helps you. It gives you a benchmark to sort of aim for. And I think one really interesting thing is, and I think you can actually practice in your head. This is a thing. And I used to do it as a kid. I was told to do this by my classical guitar teacher. And I used to carry my music about. I remember there was a Carcassy study I used to like doing, and I remember looking at the piece of music, visualizing myself playing it and practicing the notes, just going through it really like slowly in my mind where my fingerings would go. But apparently, and I think this is in the inner game of music, you can get something like a 22% improvement in your playing by practicing in your head like this. So this is an actual thing. Imagining yourself playing something perfectly. In fact, just imagining yourself practicing something. This is great for micro practicing. Just visualizing your left hand and your right hand and the picking motion and how it's happening. It can really help you. If you're unsure of a lick and you want that certainty of the notes and the patterns, practicing them in your head, practicing those scales. If you're learning melodic minor 3 notes per string, can you visualize hands playing those things? So visualizing success, but also just visualizing you're practicing, you will get good gains for that. And actually, I did hear Tom Quayle talking about this as well, is that getting that confidence when you're about to start playing in front of a load of people is visualizing yourself just doing it right really quickly and then start. Imagine yourself doing it and practice starting something. That's the other good thing about it. Practicing that positive connection with the guitar. Because starting that first note can be hard, can't it? So visualizing those challenging moments before you start them. Okay. Oh, perplexity. I enjoy listening to you, Mr. Hutch. Brilliant. You're listening. Excellent. All right. Number 8. Use games to break patterns. Add playful challenges to disrupt unhelpful habits. Examples: play a passage at an exaggerated slow or fast tempo. Use a dice to determine how many repetitions you'll do. Okay, so yes, these are straight out the game of, in a game of music. But again, what the game for me is to be making music out of these things, all right? So the challenge for me is just like what I was playing, putting the backing track on, practicing an exercise over the backing track, using it as a metronome, getting the notes, hearing how the individuals interact with the music, and then also kind of coming out of that, playing phrases before or mainly after the actual exercise massively helps, because it gives you a way of getting into a lick and out of a lick is as important as the actual lick itself. So looking at how that particular one exercise can inspire other things that can happen either side of it is a really cool thing to do. But yes, games are really good. And in fact, actually, when I'm coaching musicians, okay, we don't really talk about exercises. I'm talking about exercises now because we're being very formal, aren't we? But actually, everything's a game. When you say, right, we're going to do an exercise, it feels like, to me, oh, God. Because you just feel like you're going to be doing that one thing and creativity's been thrown out the window. But if we're going to play a game, that's different. It means there are different ways, different approaches. We can do something. It also means you're going to have fun, because who doesn't like playing games? We all like games. So just psychologically, by saying something a game, I find just lightens the load off people. We're just going to do a game. Sometimes I completely forget because I went to school and I go, oh, it's an exercise. And I think, oh, why did I say that? It's a game. So we play games. When I'm coaching in the group, when we're writing music, I'll go, here is a game and this is what we're going to do. We're going to imagine a story. We're now going to reflect on the different contrasting emotions. And then I'll take you through a process of how to reflect on those emotions and how to get them to come across in your music. And it'll all be done through play. And there's a game. So, yeah. And again, as it says here, it's a great way to sort of get over those challenges. So if you can make it into a game, make it into a game. Apply focused attention and expand awareness. Focus on one element at a time: intonation, rhythm. Gradually expand your awareness to include the whole performance. Focus on tone, quality, then include your phrasing and dynamics. So this is brilliant. So this is something that I really enjoy doing. In fact, those of you who are on here who've been coached by me, and people who haven't been coached on me, one of the things that I do train people to do, and I've done on this channel as well, is teach people how to direct listen. So one of the things with modern society and having access to every single track in the world, computer games, software, we're overwhelmed with choices, and our attention spans are getting low, right? And it becomes very difficult, all right, to listen to music. And it's even more difficult to listen to music or anything we're doing, practicing, anything like that, without having judgment. As soon as we get into the judgment again, you know, everything relates back to this self one, self two. Then the self one comes up, all right, and it's telling us what to do. That's not what we want. We need to be focusing in on the music at all time. So there'll be different. A good example of this for music producers is when you're listening to your music, right? You can do an element focus. So you'll pick one focus, like say just the snare drum, and you will listen, and that will be your anchor. And you're just going to listen to the snare, and any judgmental thinking that comes up, like you should EQ the snare, or the snare's not the right snare, right? Or the bass line doesn't fit with the snare. You're just practicing letting those thoughts go, and you're just listening to the snare and enjoying the music. So this is kind of stripping elements away and train us to listen to one element. There are lots of different flavors of the focused awareness. Another one I really like to do now when I'm improvising, sometimes what I'll do is, especially sort of when me and Thomas do those very ambient emotional jams, what I'll do is I'll start focusing in on how my body feels with that music and feeling how the tension and release works with what I'm playing and what's actually happening around me. So that's a great being aware of your body when you're playing in terms of tension release, because that's what music is, isn't it? It's tension release. That's what keeps us excited, keeps us engaged with the music, is that use of tension release. And when we're improvising and playing, feeling that in your body is a great way to do that, you know. Focusing attention and expanding awareness. So there's another direct music game as well, is what I'll tell people to do is to take and you do this when you're practicing guitar as well, is to just sit up, right? And to take a tall posture and a wide posture, and widen your posture when you're listening to music back, and to widen your peripheral vision and take that, and then that becomes your anchor. You're working on maintaining this posture while you're listening to the music. And why we're doing this is because we're trying to let as much information come into us as we possibly can, not getting on board with any judgmental thought. And when we stop the music, then that's when we start thinking about what it is that we want to work on. You know, where are the problems? What are they? Describing, explaining, coming up with a list of actions that we're going to do. Same for guitar playing. Okay, you're expanding your awareness and how we become better and how we discover. You see, I want to discover problems on guitar, and the only way I can do that is when my awareness increases. So I'll be doing something, playing something, and I'll think, you know, you'll be practicing something you can't practice, you'll get good at it, eventually you'll conquer that thing, then you plateau, and it's like, oh, what am I doing? And then eventually, like, a problem will happen, and it'll feel like, oh, you know what, it feels like, how did I ever play? This is terrible, my playing's all gone to pot. What am I going to do? And I get excited about that. Why do I get excited? Simply because I know that it's my awareness showing me something that I haven't noticed before. This thing has probably always been there, and therefore I get very excited because I'm going to take the scientific approach. I'm going to stand back, what is the problem, describe and explain, come up with micro practice, come up with things to practice, research and overcome that problem till the next problem comes. And that comes from having your awareness, expanding your awareness and becoming aware of these problems that come up. But obviously, there's the direct listening side of this. So yes, focusing on the tone quality and including your phrase. And like what I was saying before, just about listening to the picking dynamics, listening to, if you're doing legato, listening to how you want that legato tone to sound, I mean, I like that kind of just light brushing of my fingers. I might do a muted thing and work on just that plucking sound and slow it down. Moving on. How are we doing for time? Oh, it's 10 past, right. I'm on slide 10. That's good. Right, so creating a low-stress environment. Eliminate pressure during practice. Use affirmations. This is just practice. It's okay to experiment and fail. So failures, I don't mind failure, okay? But why did I fail? So often what I like to do is when I'm playing on lives and I'm soloing is I watch them back, okay, and I look at what I'm doing. Recording yourself on video is brilliant because you've got recorded information, and I treat myself as an experiment. I look at myself playing guitar, I locate where the problems are, and it's back to that, describe and explain, and then I'll come up, brainstorm solutions that I'm going to try to overcome that. And the lives with Thomas have been absolutely instrumental in my improvement as a guitarist, because what that does is it's me playing in front of people in a proper live situation, okay, and I can see exactly what the problems are at the front of my playing. And that's how, that has been so beneficial. It's been amazing. But actually, we need to have a decent environment as well. Low stress environment. Part of my coaching program is we do look into environment, and here in my space, this is a low stress and bright and environment for me. Some nice lighting, but I've got everything I need round me, and I've got nothing I don't need round me. Okay, I've got my guitars there. I've got my main guitar next to me, so I can just grab it whenever I want, and I can just almost start picking guitars up unconsciously and playing them, which is great. I've got a computer, I've got my, Stream Deck, I've got Push. Everything is ergonomically in the right place for me to be able to do what I'm doing almost unconscious. What I haven't got is things that I'm not really using in here, okay? Before I used to have a lot of hardware and stuff kicking about the studio, and it's actually in either been sold or it's gone into the timeout cupboard or the timeout box under here, and then never seen the light of day. So always having that fetish of buying a new bit of hardware gear, and then plugging it in, and then realising it's just hassle to use, and then not using it, and then leaving it sitting on the desk, and then feeling bad about the fact I'm not using it, and when I'm going to use it, is a cognitive load that you just don't need. But what you do need is we need clarity in our in our environment. Sorry, so a low stress environment is absolutely super important. Environment is kind of important. What I'd like to say with environment as well is if you can, you need to have what I call a minimum viable commitment for anything that you're doing, okay? And this is just how much time can you dedicate to doing something every day as if your life depended on it, right? If it was keeping you alive, guitar practice, and you had to play it every day, how long could you guarantee that you could play for, okay? Is the first thing. The second thing is to develop a habit, so doing, when can you regularly do this thing? So the first thing is the minimum viable commitment. Don't be surprised, because most people say, oh, well, I was talking to somebody the other day, I've got 2 hours a day. And I'm like, really? So for the rest of your life, you can do 2 hours music making? Oh yeah, no bother. And I can guarantee they'll come back because it happens every time. All right. Oh, I missed a day, or didn't do anything, I didn't get anything, or because I didn't do my 2 hours, I just like fell off and didn't do anything. So by lowering the bar on time, we're always going to be winning. So my minimum viable commitment has been as low as 5 minutes. But I know there's always 5 minutes, and I know if I can pick the guitar up in 5 minutes, I can practice a lot of repetitions on something that I'm practicing, providing I've got clear, as we talked about before, aims and objectives in that. So as long as I've got clarity on what I'm trying to achieve, it's very easy to make 5 minutes practice feel like a half an hour practice, providing it's focused. You're not noodling, you're not messing about. You can make a track in 5 minutes. If you have the conditions in your environment set up so your equipment's on and ready, you can just get to your computer, and if you've got an aim like, I'm going to do a splurge, I'm going to time 5 minutes, I'm going to just do as much as I possibly can, go for it. You're going to get into flow, and you're practicing making music without judgment, because you can't be judgmental, you can't be thinky. When you've only got 5 minutes, you just have to do. And that's great, because that's when we start really getting into the subconscious and good ideas come out. We start becoming very, very resourceful and do all kinds of things that we don't expect ourselves to be doing. So time limits, as I mentioned before, are a really good thing. So not stressing about, the fact that you don't have all the time in the world, but actually just using the time that you've got strategically, okay, and really focusing in what it is you're trying to achieve, working out how you are going to achieve it in your non-stressful environment. Okay, so having a nice little area in your house where you can practice is always good. The other thing to do is just have your guitars, or whatever it is, where it's easiest to get to them as well. I'm in a basement now. Like literally, I made music all of my life in a bedroom, right? Because my bed was there, and I just get up and do music, and it's always been automatic. Then I got into this basement in a studio, and guess what? I've come out of the bedroom. Me and the missus, we're in the basement. We just got a bed and moved it and slept in the basement, because it's just, I want to create all the time. So I just now get out of bed, hobble over to this side of the room, switch everything on, get the kettle boiling, and here I am on a live stream. And that is purely, it's all just, that's environment, isn't it? Probably a bit extreme. I've got a lovely house here. I don't bother with any of it. We're just now, both of us pile into the studio room, and because all we're concerned about is just our creative journey. In fact, I'm sitting here and she's actually in the bed typing away, probably doing some playlisting, something for the playlisters to read on our next single release, or doing a journal or something like that, or writing a novel. That's the other thing. She's been writing novels. So we just wake up and we're just like super productive in the mornings, and it's all because we've got the environment. When I was upstairs, it was like, right, I'm in bed, and then I would think, oh, I need to be downstairs. I want to do something in the studio, and you've got to get up and go all the way downstairs and come in the studio and switch things up. Well, I don't do that now. I'm just there, and just get up and do it. Or just get up and play a guitar, sit on the settee, have a bit of a strum. I'm always doing the thing, without even actually realizing I'm doing it, and that is because I'm in a low stress environment. And then end on a positive note. Okay, so what I like to do is you do your review. Wins, problems, and opportunities is the best one. Okay, so think after you practice. It doesn't matter how bad. Don't try and make if you can't, if you suddenly I don't know, something happens and you have to stop practicing, and it was really bad what you were doing. For a start, when you're practicing, it's meant to sound utter shit anyway, because if it doesn't, you're not practicing. We're meant to be doing things that we can't do, so it does sound terrible. But apart from that, finish with something you enjoy or feel confident about. Well, if we can't do that, wins, problems, and opportunities, you can always, no matter how bad something is, there's always a positive. Like you started doing something, okay? And again, reflecting on what the problems are, really important, because if we identify the problems, and as I always say, describe and explain, solutions happen. And when you have those solutions, those opportunities, as I like to call them, then you get excited about that. So even if your session was bad, you'll get excited about the opportunities and about the ways that you're going to come back to a session. And you've got these things to try out. You've got like a starting point. So that's why wins, problems, and opportunities are super important. Now, if you want to be more in a game of music, traditional about it, then yes, play yourself a nice tune, play something that you win at, have a jam, okay? Or end on, or be aware that, when your practice is starting to come together and you're starting to feel yourself climbing up the hill in a positive way and you're overcoming problems, then feel free, as you're feeling good about yourself, to end your session there. And that's something, when we're making music, I always suggest people should do, is when you feel that your session, when you're writing music and you feel like, oh, this is really good, this is feeling excellent, but then when it starts becoming thinky, and then what people do is start overthinking and then moving, removing, and improving when you initially splurge an idea, when we're doing that very beginning creative stuff. If you're moving, removing, or improving, you're doing something else, and this can lead to that negativity, like, oh, the idea isn't working. So we need to finish whilst we're still feeling good about it, and then do our wins, problems, and opportunities. So you do want, and that is going to, we just don't leave the practice feeling eager to get back. We do this through positive action, through either ending on something that makes us feel good, and making sure that we do our wins, problems, and opportunities. So there we go. And the inner game of music suggests that we play a favourite piece, mastered passage, or reminder of progress. Just have a jam. Make music all the time. So if you want to just put a backing track on, like something that you enjoy playing on, which is something I do, then do that. Okay. So that takes us up to 21 minutes past. I can now come back to me here, and I'm hoping that we've got some questions. Questions are important. I've talked for an hour about practice and not had to pick a guitar up. Well, I did a couple of times. Anyway. What do you say when the girlfriend wants to complain, but you're practicing? She's usually complaining whilst I'm practicing. And I try and listen to what she's complaining about whilst doing my practice. So that's what I do. So I'm just playing anyway. Just say something like, if I get good at this, it's going to make loads of money and pay for at least a holiday. That's what you could do, that. So the other thing, actually, on a sensible note, tube stormer, what I would suggest is that you do your serious heavy lift on your practicing, I'm not saying you're doing this at random times of the day, but your actual focus, you have a focused practice session with minimum viable commitment every day. And the best time to do that is to get up before everybody else and go do the thing that you want to do. A good woman will encourage her man anyhow. Now, not complain whilst he is rehearsing on his instrument. Yes, well, there you go. Perfect. But what you can do is you can just not complain. So, yes, what you can do is you just tell people, I'm doing this thing, I'm putting this amount of time aside for it, and do it at a time when nobody's going to bother you. So this is why, I get up and do my morning stream, because I know this is the time I'm not going to get interrupted. I have a family, got a daughter, teenager. I've got all my other music commitments that are going on. Okay, so getting that time, the only way to do that is to do it at a time when nobody else is about. So what do? I get up in the morning, I stream to everybody. But that's part of our practice. You know, like even here, I'm practicing talking to a camera, I'm practicing doing a presentation. I'll be watching this back going like, well, what was I like? How can I improve? Right, Perplexity wakes up and practices all night. Brilliant. It's the only time I have alone. Cool. All right. Any questions? I think for Christmas, I'm going to get a new thermos flask. I really don't like this one. Look at that. The lid doesn't work properly. It's like, I have to do that. It's not like the other one where it went shot up. Like sometimes the lid falls down on this. I don't trust it. It doesn't pour very well. Sometimes it goes on my leg and I burn myself. Just keep things warm though. Right. You wouldn't say good or bad woman or man. Anyway, come on, let's have some questions. Has this helped anybody? I find I get frustrated, put it down and come back. Also create positive feeling or solving a problem, and it will motivate you to try and search for new problems. Yeah, so when you put it down at that point, I would highly recommend doing some wins, problems and opportunities. You know, reviewing reviewing what it is that you were doing. And that way you're going to be excited to come back to it and less frustrated. When I practice, I generally start out doing rudimentary exercises, but I always go into doing more melodic lead playing. It's enjoyable, but I have trouble maintaining the discipline. Okay, so in terms of maintaining the discipline, first thing you can do is, as I say, minimum viable commitment and create this into a positive habit. So in other words, what you're going to do is you're going to find a time every day where you can just do your practice without being disrupted. So for me, getting up in the morning is something I always do. So that's like the trigger for my habit to start. And then basically my park walk is my reward for after I do my session. And that's how it works. So I've got to, for your habit, you've got to start and an end point. And then again, reading between the lines, maintaining discipline. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that. But providing, you don't have to be disciplined, but what is best is to have a plan when you're going into your practice sessions, that you want to be doing something that's fairly achievable. You want to be, you need to be thinking about a skill to challenge ratio to keep you engaged with that thing. So it wants to be, you don't want anything harder than a 4 to 7% out of your comfort zone. And this is like from the psychologist Csikszentmihalyi and Stephen Kotler, who's got a great book called Rise of Superman. It's basically a study of extreme sports athletes, and it tells you all about getting into flow and how to achieve things that are almost humanly impossible. And what you want to do is you want to have a realistic goal set that is only just out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, if it's too hard, it's overwhelming. And that would cause you to then not be disciplined and mess about. Okay, if the challenge to skill ratio isn't realistic enough. So if it's too hard, you'll disengage. If it's too simple, you'll disengage and mess about because it's boring. I've always been pretty natural when it comes to playing melodic lead, but it's been a blessing and a curse in that it's pulled my attention away from other more foundational exercises. Well, I wouldn't worry about it. It's an exercise is an exercise. If you're aware of the things that you're wanting to do, you will do them. But enjoy playing melodically. I'll be interested, Zone 21, in sort of, how you imagine yourself in the future, your guitar playing. The other thing is, if you've liked what you've heard today and you've been on here, please do subscribe and like. I could do with some more likes. Has everybody pushed the thumbs up button? That would be good. Can I watch it go up again? See if there's anybody on here who can push the thumbs up. I've got 11 so far. I could do with some more. And I can do with some subscribers, because I really need some more subscribers. I want to get to 1,000. I've only got tomorrow. Unless I... Brilliant. Anyway, you've subscribed and liked. Thank you, Zone 21, because there'll be more of these. Thank you, Nielsen. Oh, share the channel as much as possible. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that also helps. Well, I think it's time for my walk. Ignore that. Right. My stream bot that I never just ignore and wants attention. I'll have to switch it off at some point. So I think that is about it. So I hope everybody's found it useful. I've enjoyed going through those slides, and if there's anything else that you would like me to talk about, always just put something in the comments and I'll get to it, and it'll give me inspiration to talk about something. Thank you, Perplexity. And I'll do that, Also, there's the Discord. So there's an invite Discord button somewhere on this channel. You can click that and join the Discord, and we can talk on there. And you can even talk to each other and help each other, which would be amazing. But other than that, I'm on here tomorrow morning. It's going to be a studio session. So I'm going to be live looping. I'm definitely going to be live looping. And I know what I'm going to be really focused on is faffing about with my drum machine setup. So what I planned to do actually tomorrow was just have a look at how we can change the genre of our shred guitar playing just by changing the sounds of the drums and the patterns that we play. So I think I'm going to be starting off tomorrow by building some sort of, it's a bit of a cliche, but building some sort of like trap hip-hop kit and then seeing how that sounds against my usual shredding. So that should be quite an interesting experiment tomorrow. So changing the genre of music through changing our drum sounds and patterns. How about that? Let's hope it all works out. Not that I'm bothered, because it's just an experiment. I'll collect the data, modify and course correct in accordance to the inner game of music. So anyway, thank you everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.